What I'm about to explain in this complete guide might be considered blasphemy, possibly hearsay by many, and some of you might take me to Reddit, but I assure you, this is the word of Hoyoverse. Before I say what I'm about to say, please bless the boy with the subscription. You can take it away if you hate the video, but you won't. Blade is now officially a contender for the top DPS in the game next to Seele. Blade is an outstanding win DPS character that follows the destruction path, whose basic function is to consume health and skill points in order to significantly boost his own damage output. His unique playstyle pairs best with a character that wants to spam skill points as often as possible, while the vampiric traits tucked in his kit open the window for a self-sustaining DPS to shine. I'm confident enough to make the claim that he is the first perfect DPS character. In order for me to best explain this though, allow me to first break down the mechanics of his abilities. Blade's skill, Hellscape, is the bread and butter of his kit. You will be using this every 4 turns or so in order to transform his basic attack, Shard Sword, into Forest of Swords. And yes, I know it says it lasts for 3 turns, but we'll talk about that during the gameplay section. Here, Blade is going to consume 30% of his max HP in order to give himself a strong damage increase equivalent to that. Do note, this skill does not generate energy, but it also doesn't consume a skill point or end his turn. In the event you don't have enough HP to use his skill, the HP will simply be reduced to 1, meaning you don't need to worry about self-sabotage. Forest of Swords consumes 10% of Blade's max HP, and it deals wind AoE damage based on a combination of his attack and max HP. I know I'm saying a lot of max HPs, but please bear with me. This is the attack you'll be using the most when it comes to Blade, and thanks to his A4 trace, you won't need to stress too much about the HP loss. When you hit a weakness broken enemy, Blade actually restores 5% of his max HP plus 100. Now I might have thought of the same thing you just thought of. If I hit multiple weakness broken enemies, do I get 555% back from my HP? Unfortunately, it doesn't work this way. It won't stack for hitting multiple weakness broken enemies at once. 1 attack equals 1 A4 passive. Death Sentence is his ultimate. It's one of his cooler abilities that I've played with, and for something so simple, it has a lot going for it. At a glance, it's a giant AoE slash that costs 50% of Blade's HP. The damage itself comes from a combination of Blade's attack and his max HP, just like before, and it has up to a 90% total threshold being lost before using the ultimate. That wording is super important to pay attention to. Sets Blade's current HP to 50% of his max HP. This value will then be reset and reaccumulated after his ultimate has been used. What this means is basically you can use his ultimate as both a heal or a damage increase. So from full health, Blade can immediately consume 50 out of 90% lost HP in order to dish out a large amount of damage. That being said, don't do that. In the next section, I'm going to explain exactly how to cap out at 90% before each ultimate. Before that, I need to explain what weaves his entire kit together masterfully. Shuhu's gift, Shuhu's gift, I still don't know how to pronounce that, but this is his talent, guys. You should have noticed that there's a 1 out of 5 or 0 out of 5 stack number beneath Blade's character icon by now. Once he gains 5 total stacks, he immediately launches a follow-up attack on all enemies that deal a combined strength of damage from his attack and max HP. At the same time, it restores 25% of his max HP to Blade. 5 stacks might seem like a lot, and I've seen too many Blade down players basically lying that the character would realistically get no more than 1 to 2 stacks per cycle. Not only can you get Blade 5 stacks within the first round of battle, but he can easily gain 2 to 4 stacks per turn through a variety of ways. First would be his technique, which consumes 20% of his HP when used outside of combat, and it hits every enemy on the field. That's 1 stack. Second would then be the use of his skill, since it also consumes HP. That's 2 stacks. Third is literally Forest of Swords. When you attack, that consumes 10% of your HP. Now you're at 3 stacks. Fourth is the fact that Blade is a destruction character, meaning with a properly built team, i.e. don't put someone else who's going to steal aggro away from him, he should be the target with the highest priority. This isn't guaranteed, but it is certainly the most probable, and through my own experience, Blade has been hit every single turn. That's 4 to 5 stacks. Finally, in the event you don't get hit twice, you now have Ultimate, which will reduce your HP to 50% of the max and result in gaining another stack. Did I also mention that DOTs and teammates being possessed by Kafka that hit you also grant stacks. On top of all of that, Blade gets to go a second time during the same cycle. I just gave you 8 different ways to gain stacks through different scenarios in game. If you're still not convinced his talent is strong enough, then maybe the fact that both his A1 and A6 passives directly influence Shuhu's gift will convince you. A1 increases the incoming healing Blade receives by 20% when his HP is at 50% or lower, and A6 is going to increase the raw damage his talent does by 20%. When I told you guys this character was cracked, I meant it. He is a literal walking death blade. Now, before I move on to how to play Blade, you should understand 2 things about his traces. 1, collect all of these bonus abilities as your top priority when building the character. There is a free 12% crit rate in here, as well as over 20% max HP. 2 is that there is no real order in leveling up his traces. All of these are equally important to his kit because they work in tandem with one another. The basic attack is what you'll be using the most, so for me, I decided to upgrade that first. But as you can see, his skill itself has its own multipliers to help increase the actual damage of said attack. I would max them out at your own leisure. So usually playing with Blade is going to start here outside of battle with technique. You can boost yourself using, Bronya or Yukong maybe. Definitely don't use Yukong because she needs to attack. But what I like to do is use Blade's technique at the start of battle so that I immediately start the game with 1 talent stock for Shuhu's gift. I also start with some HP loss. That's going to go towards my 90% cap that I talked about earlier. And I'm going to get some damage on the board. We check it right here. You guys can see I've already triggered 1 stack for Disciples. So this is boom. I've got that 1 right there. I'm going to get the 8% increase. You can see right there, I'm already well over 50% crit rate. I have 62% crit rate and 151% crit damage right now. I also have my HP loss, which again is going to go into my 90% threshold. Now what's happening right now is all of these enemies from MLC 10 are pretty much going to bully Blade and try and get his talents up. You saw that I got attacked twice. I'm going to use E, which is going to turn me into the Hellscape state. I now have my boost. I now have 4 out of 5. It's still the first turn, guys. I'm going to hit basic attack, and I'm now going to get my talent for free. Cling 62k across the board. Oh my goodness, bro. I did not even use Bronya's boost yet. To make this even better, I'm gonna boost now. I don't have to, but I'm going to. Bronya almost has her ult. If we check here, I have 5,000 HP loss. What I need is 6,200. I need about 6,240 in order to have my 90% cap. I'm going to hit Q again. These guys are, I should have hit him, but whatever. These guys are gonna go down. And that is going to be the end of wave 1. Now, as I mentioned, you want to hold the ult. What I'm doing right now is loading up for Blade to do as much damage as possible. Bronya doesn't have her ability yet, so I still, once again, I want to hold this, right? I can get ultimate right here, and I can get her skill to further boost what he's got going on. I'm at 70% crit rate. In the event I was running Rutilant Arena, I'm already hitting my threshold. My HP loss, I'm at 90%. I'm ready to pop. What I'm going to do is get Bronya here eventually, as long, okay, I was going to say, as long as she doesn't get hit, we're good. What Bronya's going to, I don't have a skill. No. Okay, we're back. I have my skill point. I'm going to pop 2. All right, because I don't want to waste. I don't want to waste energy. I'm going to use my skill on Blade. Blade is now ready to go. I am already capped out as I showed you guys earlier, just to make sure. Boom, 6249. That is my 90% threshold. I cannot go any higher than that. I'm going to hit 1. 2 things are going to happen. 1, you're going to see a lot of damage as long as I crit. I have over 70% crit rate. I should be critting on this hit. 2, that 4 out of 5 stock at the bottom is going to turn into 5 out of 5. I'm attacking twice in 1 turn. Boom, 64k. Let's go. Nice. Here's my talent. 78 off the talent, and I still have my Q. I just attacked 3 times in 1 go. I did well over or close to 200,000 damage in a single attack. That's crazy. Playing Blade is just as easy as washing your ass. The main relic stats Blade benefits the most from will be crit damage on the body, HP percent for the rope, and speed on the boots. I know you might be asking yourself, well, EO, where is the crit rate? And while I do believe you absolutely want these substats somewhere, I wouldn't stress farming for them unless you plan on using the Rutilant Arena ornament set. Thanks to Blade's full kit, he naturally reaches 50% crit rate without the need for a body piece, and even though his kit is influenced by attack, albeit small, it's not detrimental enough to give him an attack percent rope or boots. An argument could be made for HP percent boots, but that comes at the cost of functions becoming 100% team dependent. The ideal crit damage you're looking for is somewhere between 150 to 200% before adding any influential partner like Bronya or Yukong. Having crit rate substats won't hurt at all and might allow you to play with both inert and Rutilant ornaments, which is a huge plus. Your HP value needs to be around 6,500 as a baseline. When I used a calculator, once Blade's HP dropped beneath 6k, he was no longer naturally hitting double-digit damage on his basic attacks, which is the bulk of what he uses. So getting HP as needed after 6,500 HP is fine. My recommended speed stat would be around 135, but this changes depending on having Bronya or not. Attack percent substats won't hurt, but they shouldn't be sought out over the previously mentioned stats. For your relic sets, the 4-piece of Longevous Disciple is his best in slot. Not only will it give Blade a free 12% increase to his max HP, but it will also give him free 16% crit rate on whatever he already has, thanks to his natural mechanic to consume his own HP every turn. The Disciple set is the only set that allows you to freely run a crit damage body piece without stressing over crit rate substats. Even though the set mentions the crit rate lasts for 2 turns, it will keep resetting itself with every loss of HP. However, a lot of you will more than likely not be able to farm perfect or even usable gear of the Disciple set for quite some time, and you'll be happy to know that Musketeer actually works in his favor as the next best relic set. With a 4-piece Musketeer set, it'll allow you to reach the 134 speed threshold easier if you are missing speed substats. It also increases the damage of Force of Swords by 6%, but due to not having the free crit or HP percent, you're going to need to make up for that a lot more in your substats if you plan on keeping a crit damage body piece instead of crit rate. Otherwise, you'll sacrifice a lot of damage. In the event you don't need the crit rate boost for some blessed reason, a 2-piece set between Disciples and Eagle of Twilight will give you the most damage output in total. As far as his best planar ornaments go, the damage difference between Inert Salcedo and Rutilant Arena are negligible. Inert will benefit his ultimate and follow-up talent by increasing the damage upwards of 15%. Rutilant will increase the damage of Force of Swords by 20%, which is used 3 times more often than both his ultimate and follow-up, but with lesser damage multipliers. Honestly, it's whichever you think is the cooler looking ornament. You can't go wrong with either. We've entered the era or meta of best light cones, and without a shadow of a doubt, hands up in the air, the Unreachable Side is his best in slot. I feel like that's kind of obvious because that is his 5-star light cone. It's made just for him. But to be fair, the light cone is just too good. Free HP, 18% crit rate for free, and 24% damage increase without any stipulations. Once again, another set of gear that requires you to farm less crit rate. This thing is nuts. Secret Vow is his second best in slot, but you can basically forget about the second ability of this light cone. It's rare that your HP will be lower than the enemies for 2 reasons. 1, you more than likely have low chill while you're pulling Blade. 2, Blade just obliterates enemies' life points faster than Obelisk the Tormentor. So while you aren't getting a near 20% crit rate for free, you at least have the chance to double your damage output for an attack or 2 with calculated plays. The last of the light cones will be Something Irreplaceable or Fall of Aeon. I put them both here, but to be fair, I'm only looking at Something Irreplaceable. It's easily attainable if you have been saving your Undying Starlight like I told you all to, but if not, you can use Fall of the Aeon. It's usable, but the main problem with this light cone is that Blade won't always be the one doing the weakness breaking. The damage increase for both of these are low across the board, and for Fall of Aeon, even at S5, it is a rough 20% damage loss compared to both Secret Vow and the Unreachable Side. So while it's clear the Unreachable Side is his best in slot, don't feel pressured into thinking he needs it. Similar to previously released characters, if you manage to take care of the extra crit rate, using the Secret Vow, especially with super impositions, will serve you more than fine. But I know how you guys are. I know some of you might be doubting words alone, and for that reason, I went ahead and did something that I don't normally ever do. It's Google Sheets, baby! In order for this to work, I needed a few things to remain set in stone. I established the Disciples Relic set as his fixed variable. Nothing about these pieces of gear will change throughout the test. On screen, you're going to see calculations from Kaijin's damage calculator to show the perfect scenario kind of numbers. Now, what I wanted to do was combine this perfect scenario with the real world perspective or real world outcome. Not everyone is going to be able to do this, and of course, it's going to differ between player and player. With the Unreachable Side, I was personally able to clear the first floor of MOC 10 in under 3 turns. When using Secret Vow with the same set, this became a 4-cycle clear. Now, this one was a little bit iffy because there were times where I almost died, but then I ended up making it through with the HP recovery. The damage was there, but I lost out on some good crits. Last in this test was using something irreplaceable, i.e. Clara's Light Cone. This one was the longest and it resulted in a 6 cycle clear and the least amount of crits I've ever seen. The HP recovery from Clara's Light Cone was not any more notable than Blade taking advantage of his own A4 passive. All of these tests were to simulate the in-game reality or expectations of what any given player can expect to experience. For free-to-play or those who just won't pull for his Light Cone, obtaining Secret Vow and getting it as close to S5 with enough crit rate substats to make up for the 18% loss should take care of that 6 to 10% difference in damage. Use the other options if that's all you have, but as far as a realistic perspective or something from an average player, when I did more research and whenever I tested this without using these characters, clearing MOC 10 at that seemed to be somewhere between 6 to 10 cycles per turn. Now I'm sure whales are going to be able to clear this a little bit faster, but within 1.1 it was hard enough for me to get to MOC 10 without having strong enough DPS characters that fit. And I understand that MOC is going to be geared towards the new banner characters, but I cleared everything with Blade on practically auto. Now, I don't know how you feel about that, but I'll tell you one character that I can't do any of that stuff on auto with, Genuine. At last, we're at the team comp section for Blade, and yeah. Over the weekend, I've seen way too many doomer takes that Blade has been nerfed to the ground and is a sub DPS at best now. Someone even said he's Walmart Clara. I'm not sure where that idea came from, but this should be more than a good enough reason to stop believing leaks. Blade's main function is 100% a main DPS, and even better, because of how strong his kit is, Blade can also function as a sub DPS to another member on your team, like Himiko or Seele. Granted, his damage output is so insane that he's still technically going to fulfill the main DPS role anyway, but alas. Let's break down his standard team templates. Templates? Wow. We're gonna talk about Blade's standard teams. My favorite and the strongest team is what I named Out of Touch with Reality, because most of you won't actually be able to achieve this because you're free to play. Blade, Bronya, Silverwolf, and Locha. This is a complete 5-star team with limited characters. The combination of both Bronyas is out of this world, and with so much utility coming from each of them to benefit Blade, you never really notice that this is a standard team comp, and it's basically his version of hyper carry. He doesn't even need a second buffer. What he wants is someone to break down the enemies, debuff them, and so on. Now, it's certainly possible that many of you have Locha and you possibly have Bronya before actually pulling for Blade, but you don't have Silverwolf. Don't fret, it's really not a big deal because you can just as easily slide Pela into this slot. Eidolons help her out significantly, and she won't do nearly as much debuffing or damage as Silverwolf due to the design alone, but her ultimate reducing the defenses of every enemy on the field quite often will get the job done. In fact, doing this allowed me to clear waves a little bit faster than using Silverwolf because of that AoE reason. Lastly, we have Locha, the healer. Obviously, Locha was so amazing in this slot. You don't need him, and I did try to use Bailu a few times instead, but this team is, I hope I'm using this term correctly, but please correct me in the comments otherwise. SP positive, Bronya and Silverwolf are basically the only ones using skills unless I absolutely need to heal. Blade triggers Hellscape every 4 turns, and Locha auto heals pretty reliably. The only gripe I have with him is when he auto heals as soon as I pop Blade's ult, then the enemy punches Queen Bronya in the chest. The next team is a dual DPS featuring Yukong, Blade, Himiko, and Locha. To be fair, any secondary DPS works here as long as they don't steal any more aggro from Blade than the Foxy and MILF will do. That means don't put Clara or Arlen on this team. It also means don't put March 7th or Fire MC or Japard, because all of them have higher aggro values and actual taunts. If you have E2 Silverwolf or higher, Mrs. Whale, then she can serve as both a debuffer and a sub DPS for Blade. Your goal with this team is to make up for the lack of Bronya by still enabling Blade some type of damage buff and using a second DPS to make up for his lack of raw power Bronya would have given him otherwise. I didn't hate this team at all. In fact, I enjoyed using Blade and Himiko at the same time, but I definitely noticed it required way more manual drive. Using Yukong was already a chore, and managing when to pop her ult without having E6 on top of making sure Blades lost 90% HP before using his ult definitely slowed my gameplay down throughout MOC 10. Unfortunately, adding Bailu or Natasha to this team created even even worse skill point consumption. It wasn't the end all be all, but it was nowhere near as free flowing. Bronya is by far Blade's best partner. Those that have her will have a Blade that is leagues above the rest. Simply having Bronya paired with Blade boosted his damage output by another 100%. When I paired him with Ting Yun, he really only benefited from Ting Yun after she used her ultimate, and most of the time, the second half of this ability was wasted because of how I played Blade to hold the ult. The same could be said for Yukong almost exactly to a T, and Asta just wasn't bringing enough. Did I just call this girl Asta from Black Clover? That's crazy. Asta was not bringing enough. She didn't bring enough to the table. In fact, most of my clear times were faster without her. Obviously, we'll want to buff our Blade, right? So it makes sense to use what you have, especially when you don't have an assortment of built characters to choose from. So it's not that these characters are bad options, it's just that the options were so one-sided that I ended up gaining more value out of using a second DPS. Blade's teams aren't as restrictive as my segment might have sounded, if at all. He plays well on almost any team comp because of his SP efficient nature and insane damage potential. But being able to maximize that damage potential comes directly from how you support him in the team. What really sold the best teammates for him were those that could take full advantage of using the new Messenger Hackerspace Relic set. That's a mouthful. With everything I've mentioned so far, we can make it 100% clear that Blade at E0 is a complete character. You don't need any other constellations to get him to do his job. That being said, these constellations are some of the most broken ones I've seen so far. E1 practically doubles his damage by increasing his ultimate's output equal to 150% of his total HP loss on top of the previous 90% cap he had before. You don't need this much power. Increasing his crit rate for free seems to be a common trend for whatever reason, because E2 jumps his crit rate by 15% during Hellscape, which you're kind of always in that mode. And with all the other equipped gear we went over today, he's nearly at 100%. An E2 Blade with the bare minimum gear equipped gives him over 80% crit rate. Think about how ridiculous that sounds. E4 is just gross. He stacks his HP up to 40% for taking damage. He's literally increasing his own damage for getting beat up. Who does that? Then remember the stacks from his talent I mentioned earlier in the video and how achieving Shuhu's gift every other turn or so was possible? Now, what if I told you that there was a way to not only increase the talent's damage by 50% of his max HP, but you could also reduce the stacks from 5 to a 4 count, meaning you could pop this talent every single turn if you played the character right. That's his E6. You don't need this. Stop it. Get some help. But if you happen to, max well on Blade, please slide in my Discord DMs. I'm trying to experience a whole new world, a brand new place I've never been. Blade is an immensely powerful character introduced into version 1.2 of Honkai Star Rail. And I would love to say I caught this because I'm just kind of that guy, but I genuinely did not expect this much power. I was a Hu Tao main in Genshin Impact. I knew how strong an HP conversion character would be, but I did not think Blade would be this strong. Both of the new relic sets directly influence his power potential, and with the current characters used to enhance his playstyle, i.e. Bronya, he's only going to get better in the near future. Super hot take, but I feel like I've proved my point. Blade just became the next strongest DPX character in the game, rivaling Seele's potential. I said it at the beginning in this video, and I'm saying it at the end. I have been right. I proved myself right. Prove me wrong. You can't. I'm excited to see what crazy strong builds you guys come up with for Father Blade. But as for me, well, it's time I get out of here because, I still technically have to make more videos to please the algorithm. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to like it, comment what you plan on doing with Blade yourself, and share with any of your friends who want to learn more about building Blade. If you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing, as it's technically the only way YouTube will let me see my kids again. I can't say my user outro because it's inappropriate for YouTube. Smell you later.